Not at all. Just because our dads are friends, I'm being pushed into marriage. I'm not young anymore, and my dad wants me to settle down soon. So, you don't love your wife? Of course not. She's an older woman. I'm just marrying her for appearances. The only one I love is you, May. I shivered at this revelation of Tom's true nature. And this May, who is she really? To think she'd boldly do this with a man about to get married tomorrow. I wanted to confront them right there, but I paused to think. Merely complaining wouldn't satisfy me after such terrible treatment. Then, an idea struck me. I quickly messaged my dad on my phone. Dad, is everyone still there? I'm about to send a video call, make sure everyone watches it. I want all the relatives to see it too. And so, I broadcasted it live for everyone. Everyone, it's starting! At that moment, everyone in both families gasped at what appeared on the screen of the phone I'd sent. I am Sarah Johnson, a 45-year-old employee. I struggled with not being married after turning 40. Maybe my standards for marriage were too high. I had a cousin 10 years older than me. She married at 21 during the height of the economic boom. Her husband was well-educated, high-earning, and tall, the so-called triple high man. As a child, I envied her marriage. So, I dreamed of a similar marriage when I grew up. However, by the time I entered middle school, the economic bubble had burst. By adulthood, it became hard to meet such ideal men. Many friends married out of compromise and calculation. But I didn't want to marry just for the sake of it. Before I knew it, I was over 40. And starting to panic. I grew up in a single-parent home after losing my mother young, with my dad as my only strong supporter. It was 4 years ago when he suddenly fell ill and was hospitalized. Worried, I visited him daily after work. That's where I met Dr. Tom Johnson, recently appointed as the hospital's director. Tom had taken over as director from his father, who was now the chairman. Tom's dad and mine were close friends since high school. Perhaps that's why Tom often talked to me when I was in the ward. One day, as I was about to go home, Tom called out to me from behind. Would you like to have dinner together tonight? Surprised by the sudden invitation, I happily agreed. Yes, I'd love to. That night, we had a lively dinner talking about our parents. He too had lost his mother early, and we found common ground. As dinner ended, Tom suddenly looked at me seriously and said, Would you like to date me? I was surprised by his sudden declaration. But he was tall and took pride in his work. Thinking he might be the one I've been searching for, I didn't hesitate to respond. Yes, I'd be happy to. After 3 years of dating, Tom proposed. Considering our work schedules, we postponed the wedding for a year. First, we looked for a new home and lived together before officially registering our marriage. All that was left was the wedding ceremony. I thought I could finally make my father proud. However, as the wedding approached, troubling events began to cloud over our relationship. It started some time after we registered our marriage. When we were living together, I still kept most of my belongings at my parents' house. After we registered our marriage, I began to gradually move my belongings to our new home. However, since I continued working post-marriage, I often left the house empty. Since I continued working after our marriage, I was often out, leaving my valuables like jewelry and handbags at my parents'. One day, as we were about to go out and I went back to my parents to get my handbag, Tom said, Sarah, isn't it troublesome to go back for your things every time we go out? Our home is secure, so you should bring your valuables here. Indeed, when we bought this house, we subscribed to a 24-hour surveillance service. I felt it would be safer here than at my parents'. Since then, I decided to move all my belongings to our new home. But strange things began to happen. Every time I came back from work, I noticed some of my belongings were missing. There were no signs of external break-ins, which was odd. I thought about asking Tom, but it felt awkward to sound suspicious. Moreover, the missing items were typically women's things like cosmetics and jewelry. even my favorite shampoo in the bathroom, available only through the official website, was gone. It was odd that only my shampoo kept disappearing. Tom used his own, so it didn't make sense for him to take mine. I was concerned but didn't discuss it with Tom, to avoid seeming incapable of managing my own things. Little did I know, this would lead to regrettable circumstances. The wedding was drawing near. Tom was often on night shifts and began to leave more frequently for conferences on Sundays and holidays. With so many preparations needed for the wedding and limited time to see each other, I found myself going to the venue with my father and father-in-law. Tom had taken care of the early arrangements like the venue and invitations, so it was mostly the reception and gifts we needed to discuss. Still, there were things I wanted to decide with Tom, especially the dress fitting. But Tom said to just pick whatever dress I liked. I waited for a chance at home and asked Tom, "Hey, could you sometimes come to the planning sessions? I want you to help pick out my dress. Can't you skip a conference just once?" Tom seemed flustered and answered, "Eh? No, I can't miss those conferences. Whatever dress you like is fine by me. I trust you and your dad with the reception and gifts." I was disappointed by his response. "Why do you have to be at these conferences right before our wedding? It's medical stuff, Sarah won't understand. I just can't miss it." His seemingly annoyed response made me suspicious. But with the wedding so close, I didn't want to argue, and reluctantly agreed to his terms. Then, one day while working in the morning, I realized I had forgotten some documents at home for an afternoon meeting. "Oh no! I've been so busy with work and wedding preparations, I completely forgot. I need to hurry back and get it." I explained the situation to my boss and was allowed to return home during my break. Fortunately, our new home isn't too far from the office, so it's possible to go there and back during the break. As I hurried home and approached the house, I noticed a strange figure in the living room. I couldn't believe my eyes. One was Tom, who should have been home after his night shift. But there was another person, a young woman I didn't recognize. She was sitting on the sofa next to Tom. Tom had his arm around her shoulder and seemed to be talking to her. I tried to listen from outside, but couldn't hear anything due to the soundproofing. Curious about who this woman was, but short on time, I quietly entered through the back door, grabbed the documents, and left the house unnoticed. I didn't want to believe that Tom was cheating right before our wedding, but they seemed too close. Suppressing my urge to confront them, I headed back to the office. I made it to the meeting, but my mind was elsewhere. Tom always says he's busy with conferences and night shifts, but is that really true? Could he have been seeing someone else all this time? These thoughts consumed me even during work. Our chances to see each other remained rare, even on weekends. I thought about asking my father-in-law, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. If Tom was lying, I didn't want to cause my father-in-law any worry. With the wedding approaching, I felt increasingly anxious. I wished my mother was here to talk to. I didn't want to burden anyone else, so I had no friends to confide in. My friends coming to the wedding were all happy for me. I couldn't disappoint them by revealing my concerns. I hoped that the scene with Tom and the unknown woman was just a hallucination. I was trying to escape reality in my mind. With this wishful thinking, I approached the day before the wedding. Tom said he had a late shift on this important night and would come home late. Before leaving for work, he suggested, "Why don't you spend tonight at your dad's? I'll be home late." Feeling restless at home, I took his advice and went to my dad's house. When I arrived, my dad greeted me at the door. "Sarah, you're back. Actually, we're having a pre-wedding celebration tonight with both families. Everyone's here." When I looked closely, I noticed many shoes lined up at the entrance. Surprised, as I hadn't heard anything about this, I entered. As soon as everyone saw me, they greeted me with a round of applause. "Congratulations, Sarah." Thank you," I replied, a bit embarrassed. I joined the celebration for a while, but decided to leave early to rest for the next day, thinking it would be best to rest for the big day tomorrow. I had just one drink and then headed home. Exhausted, I felt sleepy as soon as I got home. Thinking I could shower in the morning, I lay down in my bedroom upstairs. I woke up around midnight, having fallen asleep at 8 p.m. Looking at the clock, it was past 11 p.m. Fully awake now, I thought of taking a bath. Just as I got up from bed and was about to head downstairs, I heard some noise from the bathroom. I wondered if Tom was in the bath. But then I faintly heard voices, including a woman's. Could it be Tom and that young woman from the living room, together again? With a surge of anxiety, I quietly peeked into the bathroom. There were Tom and the woman from before, about to get into the tub together. She must be his affair. Then Tom said something outrageous. "Just because our fathers are close, I'm being forced into this marriage. I'm old enough, and my dad keeps telling me to settle down." "So, you don't love your wife, Tom?" "Of course not. She's an older woman. I'm just marrying her for appearances. The only one I love is you, May." I felt a chill hearing this conversation. This was the real Tom. And this May, who was she really? Boldly doing this with a man about to get married the next day. And without any guilt, she said something odd. "But Tom, it's amazing how you built this big house and buy me nice things." "Well, my dad did chip in a bit for this house. And Sarah buys her stuff with her own money. Women like that don't need to be supported. That's why I can afford to buy you a condo." "Yay, I'm so happy. But won't your wife find out?" "No worries. She hasn't even noticed her jewelry and stuff missing. I took those, but they were so old-fashioned. I sold them all." My missing belongings, it was all Tom's doing. Given to his mistress. Unforgivable. I felt my fists trembling with rage. Then May picked up my shampoo and said, "This shampoo is really good. I'll take it home today." "Why not? Sarah just orders stuff online. If it's missing, she'll just buy more." So, May was taking my frequently missing shampoo, treating everything in this house as if it were hers. But more than that, my heart was tearing apart. Facing such betrayal from Tom right before our wedding. I wanted to burst into the bathroom and confront them, but I paused to think. Merely complaining wouldn't satisfy me after such terrible treatment. Then, an idea struck me. I quickly messaged my dad on my phone. "Dad, is everyone still there? I'm about to send a video call, watch it carefully. I want all the relatives to see it, too." After sending the message, it was immediately read. "What's up? Sure, everyone's still here. Are you and Tom going to make a speech for the pre-wedding celebration? Just wait and see. Oh, and make sure to record the video I'm sending." I switched to video call on my messaging app. Then, I quietly opened the bathroom door. "Everyone, it's starting!" I narrated the situation, filming Tom and May. Of course, the video perfectly captured them in the bathroom, up to no good. "Whoa! What's going on here? Stop, please!" Caught off guard by the sudden turn of events, both of them were panicking. Ignoring them, I continued my narration. "Look, everyone. The groom-to-be, who's supposed to have a wedding tomorrow, seems to be in the bath with a young woman." Over the call, I could hear the rustling voices of my relatives at home. Some even screamed in shock. My father-in-law, watching the video, shouted in anger. "What the heck is this?" Feeling sorry for startling him, I kept narrating. "Here's Tom and, who might this lady be? How long has this been going on? Sarah, enough is enough." Oh, the cheating husband is getting defensive. Does he even realize his position? Tom, clearly angered, continued to lose his temper. Beside him, May was shivering, clinging close to him. Watching them on the screen, my father-in-law looked furious. He snatched the phone from my dad, glaring at the screen, and said, "Tom, What are you doing at such a critical time? And isn't that woman our hospital's nurse, May? Turns out, May was a nurse working at Tom's hospital. Surprised but trying to remain calm, I continued my commentary. Oh. What a revelation. The mistress is none other than the groom's subordinate. Sarah, that's enough, I get it. My father-in-law said, cutting off the call. Discovering that his own son was having an affair with a subordinate at home. My father-in-law might have been deeply shocked. I regretted causing him distress. Seeing Tom's infidelity firsthand, I was distraught. As I hung my head in regret, Tom taunted me. See? You upset Dad. How are you gonna fix this? You've ruined my reputation as the hospital's successor. If something happens, you're responsible. Yeah, right. You should be grateful to be marrying him. Know your place. They were blaming me, conveniently ignoring their own wrongdoing. It was as if they were making it seem like I was the one who had done something wrong. Filled with frustration, I couldn't respond. Then, the doorbell rang. On the monitor, I saw my dad and father-in-law. Not alone, but with all the relatives from the pre-wedding celebration. I quickly opened the door and let everyone in. My dad looked extremely worried. Sarah, are you okay? It must have been tough. But it's all right now. We're all here for you. Dad, thank you. Seeing his face, I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. I was really frustrated and hurt. Crying, I collapsed on the spot. The relatives comforted me, patting my head and back. Overwhelmed, I started sobbing. My father-in-law rushed to the bathroom. And without knocking, burst open the door. Tom! What on earth are you doing? Whoa, Dad! Ah! What's going on? They were just as surprised as when I first entered. Then, more relatives followed him in. What the heck? Why are you all barging in? Oh no! Everyone, please leave! Tom and May, still showing no remorse, angered my father-in-law even more. Do you two even realize what you're doing? Get out of there now. We'll talk later. Really, young girls these days have no shame. My aunt remarked, looking at May in disbelief. They got out of the tub, covering themselves with towels, and hurried to the dressing room. But their clothes weren't there. I had secretly hidden them before filming with my phone. Hey, where are our clothes? Tom, wrapped in a towel, looked bewildered. I almost burst out laughing. May just sat there, trembling. Everyone looked at them with utter disbelief. Wait, let me change in the bedroom. I'll catch a cold like this. No. No. Help me. My father-in-law was tough. He probably thought I'd escape if he let me change. Well, it's fine. Just sit there. Tom, why did you do this? Explain yourself. Well, I married Sarah because you told me to. She wasn't really my type. What? You never said that. Of course I didn't. I'm the heir, and my dad's word was law. I thought if I disobeyed, I'd lose my chance at being the hospital director. My father-in-law was speechless at Tom's explanation. The relatives looked at him in shock. I married out of obligation. And it made me incredibly sad. Noticing this, my father-in-law spoke kindly to me. Sarah, I'm sorry for the pain Tom caused. It's not your fault. No, it's not your fault. Please, lift your head. But, with the wedding tomorrow, this is a mess. I felt a sudden pain in my heart. The wedding I had longed for now seemed impossible. My dad put his hand on my shoulder. Sarah, you don't have to force yourself. I'll explain everything to the guests. That means we're calling off the wedding. I couldn't imagine continuing a marriage with Tom. So, there's no choice but to cancel the wedding. When it seemed settled, Tom said with a relieved look. So, I'm free now? No, that's not happening. My father-in-law said sternly. Why? We're not getting married, right? You cheated with a young nurse. Only the family knows now, but soon it'll be the talk of the hospital. We can't have someone like you as the director. That's right. Tom, you've disgraced our family. You're not fit to be the heir. The other relatives nodded in agreement. Does that mean I'm fired? Yes, you are. Tom started making ridiculous excuses. This is no joke. Sure, it was an affair, but I was tricked. She used her youth to seduce me. So, I'm not at fault here. Tom pointed at May, trying to pin all the blame on her. How cowardly. May, with tears in her eyes, said, That's terrible, Tom. You said you loved only me. You only married her out of obligation, right? Was the promise of an apartment all a lie? Tom's poor excuses seemed to dig his grave even deeper. Especially after May exposed everything in front of everyone. Idiot, don't say unnecessary things. Tom said this, his face turning red, and he collapsed on the spot. My father-in-law, looking down at Tom, said in a disappointed tone, Tom, I've completely misjudged you. If you had shown some willingness to protect her, I might have let this go quietly. I could have even helped you find a job at another hospital. What? Dad, you should have said that earlier. Fool! How rotten can you be? My father-in-law scolded Tom with a fury I had never seen before. Tom was speechless. Watching Tom, my father-in-law took a moment and then started to explain. I wanted to repay a debt to a man who once helped me. That's why I wanted you to make his granddaughter, Sarah, happy. But now, I can't face her grandfather with this situation. What? What do you mean? Tom looked puzzled. I didn't know that my grandfather was my father-in-law's benefactor. My grandfather had passed away when I was young. Then, my father-in-law explained more about my grandfather. He had struggled financially when he started his own hospital. At that time, my maternal grandfather, who was the head of a major local bank, helped him. My grandfather often visited the gastroenterology department of the general hospital for his gastric ulcer, where my father-in-law was the doctor. My father-in-law had always wanted his own hospital and discussed financial matters with my grandfather, who even assisted him when he started his hospital. It turns out my father-in-law had fallen in love with my mother, his daughter, at the time. He confessed his feelings, but my mother was already dating my father. He even shared this bittersweet love story with us. After finishing the story, my father-in-law turned back to Tom. That's why, Tom, you owe your current position to Sarah's grandfather. I wanted you to make Sarah happy because of that. Then May spoke up. What's that about? That's just parents' convenience, right? Deciding your son's marriage partner for such a reason is the worst. Quiet. A woman who cheats has no right to speak. No. Stop. Tom, help me. May clung to Tom, begging for help. But Tom shook off her hand and shook his head slightly. I'm sorry, May. There's nothing I can do now. Please. May cried, and my father-in-law spoke to her. That's how it is. I'm sorry, May. You'll have to leave the hospital too. What? That's so unfair. It can't be helped. Your actions could jeopardize the hospital's reputation. Hearing my father-in-law's words, May looked completely defeated. Seeing that, I decided to deliver the final blow. By the way, I'm going to need alimony from you. Even if you don't like it, we have evidence, you know. What? No way. I've just lost my job, and I already bought so much stuff because Tom promised to buy me a condo. But now that's gone too. All I have left are loan repayments. What am I supposed to do now? Oh? That's just what you deserve for messing with someone else's husband. Think of it as your punishment and deal with it. When I said that, May broke down in tears. But I didn't let that stop me from also addressing Tom. And speaking of alimony, of course, I'll be getting it from you too, Tom. And I'll be getting the divorce papers tomorrow, so be sure to sign them, okay? Right. And I can't forgive you for betraying Sarah, the granddaughter of a man who did so much for me. I want you out of the hospital and our family. In other words, you're disowned. Then the others around us started saying, yes, that's right. Tom and May, realizing they had no options left, just slumped in defeat. After that, I filed the divorce papers, and the divorce from Tom was finalized. I tried to sell our new home, but it was hard to find a buyer. Maybe because it was a custom-built house with too many personal touches. I had to sell it for less than half the original price, but at least I got the money from the sale, which I used for property division and alimony. Tom lost his wife and all his property. Disowned by his parents, he couldn't even return home. He started living alone, struggling to find a new job. I only know this because our fathers still keep in touch. My dad says he hears complaints about Tom every time he meets my former father-in-law. Tom keeps showing up at his parents' house, begging on their doorstep. But they never let him in. And I heard through the grapevine that May went to Tom's place. She's still upset about not getting a condo, and keeps pestering him to get back to being a doctor so she can live in luxury. Tom, at his wit's end, even called me. Sarah, I was wrong. I was deceived by a younger woman. I'll never cheat again, so let's get back together, he begged. But I replied in the same tone. I was wrong too, for being deceived by your good prospects. So, I've decided to stop choosing men based on their job or looks. Let's just find our own ways to live, so, goodbye. Hey, wait a minute. Before he could finish, I hung up and immediately blocked his number. I also blocked him on all email and messaging apps. According to my dad, May is working in a nightclub and Tom is doing odd jobs while job hunting. But their affair scandal is well known among medical workers in the area. So it's unlikely Tom will find a job in the field again. I heard that whenever medical professionals visit May's workplace, their affair becomes the main topic of conversation. Because of this, the reputation of wherever she works suffers, and it's said that May ends up getting fired from every place she works at. Still, May hopes for Tom to return to being a doctor. She even moved to a remote area, with her dragging a reluctant Tom along. Now, no one knows where they are. As for me, I went back to my parents' home and am commuting to work from there. I'm not thinking about marriage for a while, especially after seeing my cousin, who I thought had the perfect marriage, go through a late divorce. But she's gradually becoming independent and seems happy with her work and hobbies. So, for now, I'm enjoying my time alone. Then, one day, a male colleague in my department spoke to me. Sounds like you've been through a lot. Well, it's kind of like a heroic tale. My divorce scandal became a well-known story at work. It's a bit embarrassing, but whenever someone asks, I always answer with a smile. Then, Steve, who had a serious look on his face, said to me, Actually, I've been interested in you, Sarah, since I transferred here. But it seemed you were already engaged, so I had given up. While saying this, he invited me out for lunch during our break. Steve, 2 years younger than me, transferred to our company 3 years ago. Since then, we've been working together in the same department. I hadn't particularly noticed him before, but he's always been kind. And whenever I made mistakes, he subtly covered for me. Maybe someone like Steve is the ideal partner for me. I had thought I wouldn't consider marriage for a while. But it's surprising that I might have met a good person so close to me. It seems I had completely overlooked it until now. Everyone has 1 or 2 failures. Thinking about it that way, I've started to consider this new opportunity positively. I'm nearing my mid-40s, but age doesn't matter when it comes to happiness. After all, life is